welcome to the Solid Signal podcast for the week of April 28th, 2014. You know, it wasn't that long ago that I was talking to one of the top executives over at Antennas Direct, who also happens to be a friend of mine, not that I'm dropping names, but it led me to think that I really wanted to explain how antenna recommendations get done at Solid Signal and how it's still a little bit more of an art than a science. First of all, if you didn't know that Solid Signal does antenna recommendations, you're missing out. Go to solidsignal.com and click on that Get Antenna Help link at the top. I'm also going to put a link to it on this video if you're watching on YouTube, but if you're on audio, you're going to just have to go to the website. At any rate, this isn't some automatic computer-based thing. This is a group of actual, real human antenna professionals who are there to recommend the best antenna for you. And because we're talking about humans, it means sometimes there are going to be differing opinions. I'd like to explain. You know, with literally hundreds of different antennas to choose from, we ask for as much information as possible so that we can give you the best possible antenna for your need. When you fill out that form, if you know you're in the bottom of a valley, if you know there's a 20-story building next door, if you know that your building is made out of concrete block reinforced with lead, you know, that's the kind of thing that you want to tell us, because then we can tell you exactly what you'll need. We look at all the options. For example, if you need a VHF antenna, not everybody does. That's why some people can get away without having those big Yagi-style antennas that look like they came from the 1950s. On the other hand, we also look at how far away your towers are. That gives us an idea of how big of an antenna we need to provide for you. With all the available options, sometimes this does take a little while. And on behalf of the antenna request team, I'd just like to say thanks for being patient. It does sometimes take a couple of hours, can even take up to a day to give you the right antenna request. If you're in a rush, you can get on our chat line if it's available. Just go to solidsignal.com and click on the live chat button at the top in the search area. But that may not be as accurate of a recommendation because we're doing it on the fly. Yes, it's true, since television went to high definition, picking an antenna has gotten harder, not easier. You'd like to think that it would have gotten a little easier, but unfortunately that's just not the way it went. There's just so many factors to consider now. The different kinds of broadcasting, how high your antenna should need to be. The construction of your home plays a part as to whether or not you can use an indoor antenna. Do you need an amplifier? Do you specifically not need an amplifier? There's just tons and tons of stuff to think about. And that's why we want to make sure that we take the time to do everything right for you. Which brings me back to the conversations I've had with my friend at Antennas Direct about how antenna design is better than it ever was. And antennas are better than they ever were. You know, you can complain that antennas aren't as durable as they were in the 1950s. And you know what? I get that, because back in the 1950s, antennas sold for the equivalent of close to $1,000 today. People don't want to pay that much for an over-the-air antenna, and so compromises have to be made. They're made in the form of thinner materials, lighter materials, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the antenna is less durable. What it means is it's better engineered in ways that we couldn't do 50 to 75 years ago. You know, at some level, an antenna is an antenna is an antenna, and if you have an old aerial up on your roof as I do, you know that it still works probably as well as it ever did. The difference is that today we have antennas that work even better. How? Computer-aided design. Simple, man. The fact is, we can make an antenna and test it now before we ever do any real manufacturing. And we can do it using science, not just, what people think might work. It's a whole different world for everything, and that includes antennas. And that's why I urge you, if you're going to cut the cord this year, if you're interested in getting free television, to do one of those antennas request forms that we have at solidsignal.com, like I said, right up at the top of the site. And even if you don't buy anything, at least you'll know what the right choice is for you. And if it's not what's up on your roof, maybe it's time to make a change. That's about all for the podcast this week. Have a great one.